Welcome to the Success with Jewelry podcast, where we invite you inside our conversations about business success and marketing for jewelry designers and entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 90. In this episode, I'll be chatting with award-winning sustainable jewelry consultant, Christina T. Miller. We'll discuss terms you can use truthfully in your business and how to share your sustainable practices with your audience. I also want to tell you about our insider community. When you join, you'll have access to extended episodes full of tips that you can start implementing today and further resources about each topic we discuss. In the bonus content of this episode, we'll be talking about how to avoid greenwashing in your marketing. To get access to exclusive content as well as direct access to me and Larissa, sign up by visiting successwithjewelry.com. Hey, Christina, let's get into it.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. We're very excited. Larissa couldn't be here for this interview, but she's also very excited that we're chatting with you because sustainability is such an important topic. But before we get into it, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks. It's my pleasure to be here and to also be representing my consultancy and other teammates. So I'm Christina Miller. I have been probably making jewelry. I started making jewelry in middle school after finding some copper wire in the basement that my dad had for a stained glass hobby. But I don't make jewelry anymore since launching and running ethical metalsmiths for many years from 2004 until 2015. And in 2015, I started this consultancy because we had finally arrived at a point where there were enough alternatives available to jewelry designers and jewelry companies that I could begin to consult and offer advice in directions to possibly go with their practices. So, yeah, I have an MFA in jewelry and metalsmithing, a former jewelry and metalsmithing professor at the university level. So it's a long, life is funny, but here we are.
It's funny. It's funny how we've got all of our jewelry journeys. It's fun to talk to people in the industry who I've known for a decade and like where they are now and the twists and turns their career has taken. But I want to hear more about your consultancy. But first, I also want to mention to everyone that like Ethical Metalsmiths is an amazing resource. And if you're shopping the Tucson show and looking for sustainable gemstones, they have a great gem show that you don't want to miss.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool community of people. When I go to events like Tucson or JCK, it's grounding to spend time with Ethical Metalsmiths members. There's a familiarity there that is comforting.
That's great. Some of my favorite people are very involved in ethical metalsmiths, which is great. But share a little bit more about what you do with your consulting.
Yeah. So, what is a sustainable jewelry consultant? Um, and for us, that means, we help jewelers implement what are called responsible and sustainable business practices. And we're going to get into that a little bit more today, but we offer really customized approaches because everybody is different. Everybody has different kind of core values. Everybody has different experience levels, different size businesses, et cetera, and different visions for the impact that they want to have in the world. And so we help jewelry companies navigate this space and then confidently serve their own clients with pieces of jewelry that they feel good about and that meet the ethical expectations that customers have. And ultimately, it's about making lives all along the jewelry supply chain better. And so we kind of have two types of clients to make a really well-rounded business model that keeps us at the forefront of emerging information. And so we work with people from within the jewelry industry, companies, like I said, of all different shapes and sizes. And then we also work with nonprofits who are aiming to tackle some of the really gnarly issues that do impact and affect our industry. So from, responsible mining initiatives to um, um, various standards and language that's used, and whether or not that language actually matches our values as, designer makers. So we work these two environments in tandem, very much in a bridge building role, bringing information from the jewelry sector to nonprofits and vice versa.
Which is so important because, I mean, it's such a big topic. It's hard to know where to start. And I think having somebody that you could hire or work with to help you through that is huge for jewelry designers.
Right. It's like having a marketing coach or having your tax, your accountant and your bookkeeper, or your photographer. Like, we hate to add another burden to the responsibilities of designers, but that's why we've sort of come up with products and offerings that make it accessible at just about any level, because we know that the sustainability pillar is now expected, and we're here to help. That's our purpose. And we know that, not everybody can hire you know, a C-suite professional, managing a sustainability program, but you still have to have a program of some level.
I was doing an interview with one of my favorite Asheville local businesses recently, and she was like, I am a value-based business. I have my core values, and that is what drives my company and drives my decisions. And I know there's like many value-based businesses out there, but to hear somebody come in so strong, and she has such a strong brand and such a strong vision for what she's doing, but to hear that too and how that's driving her, I mean, it made me feel so inspired to, revisit mine. And, I think that having a value-based business now is so important, to have values, to be able to communicate them with your audience. And so I don't know where I was going with this, but, what you're saying is that you're helping um, jewelry designers, who know their values, how to like act on them. I guess what I'm trying to say, sorry, this is off topic, but what I'm trying to say is that if you don't have your values listed or you haven't thought about them for your business, it's really important these days, right?
Yeah, and that's, with a, sort of our feature package. It sounds funny to say it that way, but we have this, we call it our essentials consulting package. And it has that name because it really is what we've identified over the years as being the essential elements of building a robust kind of responsible sourcing and sustainability program. And that's where it begins, is knowing your values, because you can then, with purpose, build the way you purchase materials or the decisions you make around the materials you buy to serve your values. And then, assuming that your values are to be generous and kind and beneficial to the world, sort of what, we assume that's kind of a main thing that people are coming in with, then you can make decisions with your purchasing that better amplify that value, or at least of the choices that you're making, which ones are ultimately more in line. And I think what we're finding too is that sometimes people are surprised by the product, the gemstone or the diamond or the gold or whatever that they thought was going aligned isn't actually quite in alignment as much as they thought. So we do the work then of, after they know their values, we really help um, develop a pathway based on current practices and evaluations. And then the individual is really set up to move from there on their own.
That's amazing. So let's answer the question for people who are wondering, is like, what does sustainability actually mean?
So something that's really fair to ask. It's a term that's been around for a really long time. It's often tied to the word development, sustainable development. But we tend to follow along with the definition that has been written by the Jewelry Glossary Project, which is I don't know if you, in the show notes, we could put the link to the Jewelry Glossary Project, but um, what's important is to come to an appreciation that sustainability is not only environmental sustainability, it is also economic sustainability, and then it is also social cultural sustainability. And all, when taken together, they are a better measure of how sustainable your practice is, because it takes into consideration more factors than is typically assumed, I think, when people hear the word. So when I say like environmental sustainability, it's really good that there is increased awareness to be very careful about your carbon footprint, right? That's sort of an obvious environmental impact. When it comes to economic sustainability, we like to emphasize that we're connected to people all along the entire jewelry supply chain. And so economic sustainability doesn't only apply to your own business, but it applies to being able to secure sustainability for other businesses that you rely on and partners that you work with. And grow value for those at the very beginning who earn the least from their materials, typically. And then when it comes to social cultural sustainability, it's important that we have cultural heritage and we have history around practices and materials. And so this is about how are people in particular impacted by our purchasing decisions and our choices, and is that sustainable? So are they mining communities, or are they people impacted by mining, or are they people who are cutting and polishing stones? So extending the concept of sustaining their lives and livelihoods through the practice. So you can see really quickly that to say I sell sustainable jewelry, you've got to tick a lot of boxes before you're able to say that.
It's such a huge thing to consider for your business. It's not like a simple thing you can kind of switch to overnight. Do you have any tips for designers who are interested in pursuing a more sustainable business?
Yeah, yes. Pretty much an easy, like a way to start is to think about dividing it up into two buckets. Your everyday practices, things you do every day to run, manage, for your business to exist. And then the other bucket is your materials. And when you look across the jewelry industry, our biggest impacts really are around our materials. So that's where the concept of responsible sourcing comes in. And that's why we put a lot of attention on that in our work, in the way we guide our clients. But a good and easy place to start in your everyday business practices is starting to get a sense of, what's my basic carbon footprint, is something that you can do. And I don't like to we're not putting the burden of causing climate change on independent jewelry designers, right? That's not the story here. But we all have responsibility to know what our footprints are, because that then allows us to find ways to reduce, even if we're already, only a small factor. So you can look at what your energy source is. You can look at how frequently you drive or what your mode of transportation is. You can look at your shipping practices, your buying and shipping practices. And if you're an actual designer maker, you can be looking at the way you dispose of chemicals that you use in your studio, and so on. When it comes to kind of a quick change or something that you might do when it comes to your materials is, what's the dominant material you use in your practice? Do you use mostly silver? Do you use mostly gold? Do you use diamonds? Do you use colored gemstones? Kind of find a material that really has weight in your designs. I don't mean physical weight, but like what are you using a lot of? Because if you can change something there, it means you're going to have more of an impact on your overall practice. So let's pick gold, for example. Things that are really important right now are to know where your gold comes from. If you don't know where it's coming from, that's problematic, because you really might be supporting something that you don't want to, and you'd rather be supporting something that you do. So, you know, we often encourage folks to pursue Fairmined, the purchasing of Fairmined gold. It's great if you want to become a licensee that allows you to shout about the fact that you're using Fairmined gold, but you actually don't have to. You can buy the material from a refiner or from your caster, and you just can't talk about the fact that you're using it, but you know you're using it. So that's like an easy change.
I love what you and your team say about like starting where you're at and starting somewhere. And, you're such an advocate for like just thinking about it and getting started versus like, just being like the perfect sustainable business overnight. And I think that's really important for people to hear and designers to hear, is that like start where you're at. You don't have to do everything at once.
Yeah, I mean, you don't start to clean up your room, at once. Or if you have kids, you don't tell your kids to like clean up their entire room and expect it to be finished. Like that's not how it works. So, um, you really do have to start where you are. And what we love is in this process, sometimes you discover that you're doing way better than you thought you were. Like we put burdens on ourselves that we don't even know if they're true or not. And so as you start to unpack it, you realize like, oh, wow, I've been doing this thing all along. And it turns out that's one of the key areas to be improving on. And there you have it. So you're totally right.
And so, if a brand is focused on sustainability, or maybe they're pursuing some of these practices, what claims can they truthfully make in their marketing?
Yeah, that's tricky. So, first, what is a claim, right? A claim is like, somebody might say 100% natural. We even saw once like a claim of, 100% vegan diamonds. Anyway, so like, what is a claim? A claim is like when you say something about your products. You can say, let's say it's me and I'm making jewelry and I'm the only one making the jewelry and it's 100% fabricated by me. I can say, this jewelry was made by a woman. It is jewelry and it was made by a woman. But what we're talking about here are, it's like sort of the passing down of sustainability claims. And saying that your jewelry is sustainable is like a glaring alert, warning sign that maybe you aren't as knowledgeable as you should be before you're saying something like that. It means that there's probably more work to do in that environment. So the other thing with our field is that when it comes to a designer, jewelry maker, even a jewelry retailer who's buying product made by other designers, by other manufacturers, there is this passing down of claims. And before you make anyone's claim your own that came from somewhere else. So for example, this is a really sticky one, but I'll just say it, like conflict-free diamonds. Before you pass that down and claim it for your own product, you really have to know and understand what that means. So I don't know if that's like really getting to your question. I
No,
have some more ready for the greenwashing piece, but
yeah, in the bonus episode, we're going to be talking more about greenwashing and what that means and how to avoid it and all that. But it's kind of like the idea, like there's a lot of conversation around, or there was, I don't know if we're still talking about this, around handcrafted. Like,
Mm.
can you say that your jewelry's handcrafted? This kind of feels like that to me because there are, like maybe elements were handcrafted, but when can we say it's actually handcrafted? The same with sustainability. It's kind of like a blanket thing. And if you're saying that stones are ethically sourced, we got to make sure they're ethically sourced, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, and this is stuff that when you are pursuing sustainability in your business, it's something you do want to share with your clients in their marketing. In your opinion, what would be 5 key things that you would look for in a brand's communication that will tell you that they share their responsible practice as well?
hmm these are folks that can talk about they're open about their practices, like how they produce their jewelry, and they're clear about that. So there's a transparency piece. When it comes to their precious metals, they're able to talk about where their precious metals come from, share as much as they possibly can about that, and show that they're not just passing down one claim from someone, but they actually have an understanding themselves. So one of the ways that people can show that is if they provide a glossary on their website, or they have some kind of explanatory note of what they mean by those things. So I kind of merged two. So we have like transparency, we have communication, then we have those specific materials. How are you talking about your metals? How are you talking about your gemstones, be it diamonds or colored gems? And then, are there other things that you are doing in your life that show you are a careful citizen in the world? So we look for activism in different areas. We look for, and by that it's like self-defined, right? There's not some script where we're saying, oh, are they doing this? It's not like that. It's more, what signs do we see in the way the person is communicating that signal a human, caring individual that's behind the ideas? So I think that's sort of like the most you could find, really, if you're just scanning somebody's website, for instance, versus having a deeper conversation. So
Yeah, that's great. I love what you said about kind of how you exist in your life outside of your business. And it's so important to like share some of those aspects of what you do. Because really, like, great people I love to work with, businesses I love to support, like they live what they talk about. They're not just saying it. I just think about myself, for example, is that like I love community. I'm always talking about my love for community. I'm building communities, and I'm very active in my local community. Like I am a community builder in real life when it comes to my kid and my neighborhood and my street and all of that. My street meaning my neighbors and all of that. Like I just
yeah.
love community. And I think that that's something I'd want people to know about me, that I'm not just like, oh, I'm building this like community of jewelry designers. I actually like very much care about community in every aspect of my life.
Yeah, that's valuable. Because then what that means, what that shows too, is like if someone, I mean, this we're getting at, in marketing, like we're now getting into the weeds or into the sort of the roots of who someone is, but it may not be the thing that motivates the first purchase of your jewelry necessarily, but it might motivate the second or third purchase of your jewelry, like from a collector who comes to know and understand you as an individual and what you care about. Um, but it just shows that, too, when you're sort of public about these values, it means you are also willing to open yourself up to criticism willingly. And one of the milestones that people kind of graduate to is publishing a sustainability report. And I know these get all kinds of mixed reviews if you look at large industry. that's a totally different topic in a way. For us, the milestone of the sustainability report is basically you arrive at a point where you're able and willing to say what you are doing, and you're putting it out there in a public realm in a transparent way. It it necessitates feedback in a way. Like when you do it, you are then, making yourself open to feedback, and that's a positive. It might not be easy, the response that you get, it might not be easy to handle, but it's like being a good community member.
Love all that. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about your course? Because another way that people can work with you, designers can access you and your teaching, is through a course that you've recently launched.
Yeah. The Foundations of Sustainable Jewelry Practices course is one that we developed as a team, and it's a series of videos with lessons. There's a quiz. And in total, it's about an hour and a half of content, and it lays the foundation for a new way of thinking about the legacy that the jewelry industry inherited and what sort of this generation of jewelers is trying to change. And so it's a mindset shift. And I think what it leads to for people is that at minimum, it puts some questions in their mind so that the next time they perform sort of an automated activity, like I'm going to place that next order for blah, for chain, or for this or for that, you pause a second and start to think about whether or not this act that you're doing is helping to transform the industry for all. So it's yes, it is about how our collective action can shape the industry, but there are a lot of great nuggets for individuals. What can I do? How can I change? What do I need to do next? So yeah, we've gotten great responses. People have told us that it's been very enlightening. The content has been informative. It's easy to access, and it's not too long. And then we also offer every quarter, we have an office hour for students, current students and past students. And that's a really, really valuable time because you can come to the office hour and spend time with us asking your own questions.
I took the course. I thought it was great. This topic can be heavy. It can be a lot, but I feel like it's presented in your course in a way that's very digestible and very easy to consume, and you learn a lot. So I just want to put that out there. I also want to say that your team is amazing. I mean, you have such a great team. You're great, obviously, but your team is great too. So having access to your team as well, I think, is a benefit of all of this. Like, it's an amazing group of people to chat with.
Absolutely. They're amazing. Cecilia and Anna are on the team, and everybody brings different skill sets. Something that's really interesting about Anna and Cecilia is that they're both active designers in their own right, and so have navigated these spaces in real time as the industry continues to change. And that is valuable, right? What they can share based on their own experience is pretty special.
I agree. So I want you to check out the link in the show notes. If you're interested in the course, you can use the code SWJ and you'll get 10% off if you want to check it out. But also just join Christina's email list, check out her living room sessions. There's a lot of great resources and content that you provide outside of this.
Yeah, if I can. The living room sessions they're like a mini thesis every session. So I think we've covered just about any hot topic you can imagine so far in the industry. If you look back at the archives, if you're interested in fair mine gold, if you're interested in mining standards, if you're interested in diamonds, if you're interested in color gemstones, if you're interested in carbon, if you're interested in how to have conversations with your suppliers, like we've covered all of it and we'll continue to do so.
They're great. So dive into that, check out the archives, check out the course. Let us know if you have questions. Christina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So, are you interested in learning more about sustainability? Let us know. Visit successwithjewelry.com. And if you love the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a message or leave us a review. Thanks for being a part of the community.